If you're wondering how to stay aligned with your vision, how to keep moving forward toward your vision, even when setbacks get in the way, even when your confidence isn't necessarily as big or as great as it could be, even when you are facing some of the toughest challenges in either your life or business, how do you stay focused on your vision? Well, that's what we're diving in on today's show. Hello and welcome to today's show. This is One Year No Fear. This is all about supporting you and empowering you as a small business owner to conquer your fear and achieve the dreams that you are setting out with for your business. Well, today we're going to dive into a topic that really resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs. I pray that it resonates with you today because it's all about how do you stay aligned with your vision despite maybe fear of commitment coming up. I don't know how I'm going to manage to do all of this. If you are worried about how can you see this vision through, maybe even a fear of failure or self-doubt has snuck in at some point. Maybe you're feeling that now or you have felt that recently. Well, I'm going to dive into that today with you, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you, walking side by side alongside you as you go on this journey. So before we dive into the strategies for staying aligned with your vision, let's identify the 3 common fears that often derail entrepreneurs. Now, for those of you that know Greg and I, you'll know that in 2016, we ran a survey to over 41,000 entrepreneurs and small business owners. In fact, it went out to over 60,000 and over 41,000 of them responded. And from that data, from that research, we were able to pull it together, and it kind of came down to 12 what we call buckets of fear. So no matter what fear someone expressed they had, it would always come down to one of these 12 fears that was underpinning it. So there are 3 fears that I see all the time for somebody who gets derailed, goes off track from their vision quite quickly, who is easy to distract. And maybe you're one of those people who is like, oh, squirrel, oh, idea, I've got to go work on that. And it can really derail you. It can derail your idea, and it can certainly derail your business, because then you're flitting around and you try something and that doesn't quite work, and you haven't given it everything you could do before you move on to the next thing, and you try something else and try something else. That can also be connected to what we talk about in the One Year No Fear book, when we talk about the 5 cycles of change. And the 3rd cycle of the 5 is what is famously known as the Valley of Despair, because that's the point that if you are going to question yourself, if you're going to get into fear, if you're going to lose your confidence, then stage 3 of the 5 cycles of fear is the place where you really want to connect back into your vision in a really strong way. And if you didn't have a strong vision in the first place, that phase 3, cycle 3, that's where you're going to fall down. So I want to dive into these 3 fears today, because the 3 that are packing that ultimately a fear of commitment, being committed to the success of your vision, being committed to the result of your vision, being committed to the you that you will be on the other side of that vision, because that can be quite scary as well, especially if you're going into territory that you've never known before. This is going to be a version of you that you might not have met. You are stepping up and stepping out and stepping into maybe a different identity. I see this all the time with members who have lost a significant amount of weight, for example. We don't focus on weight loss, but we have some amazing members who do. And they talk to me, and having also been on that journey myself, I can say with absolute certainty that if you lose a ton of weight, but you still keep the identity of the overweight person you were, then you are going to be running patterns and beliefs and values and habits and behaviors that will all be aligned with being the bigger, heavier version of yourself, which is no surprise that most people then end up back there. Same with money. You could come into a large sum of money, but if your money patterns and your money beliefs, behaviors, values, habits are all aligned with that of somebody who says, oh, I'm just no good with money, I can never keep money, then the identity you have around that is going to send you exactly back to where you were. So I totally get it when you're on a journey, when you're growing your business and you have this fabulous vision, or you certainly have that vision and the idea at the beginning and you feel, woohoo, this is going to be awesome. And that's your like cycle 1 and cycle 2. Oh my gosh, this is a bit more work than I thought it was going to be. This doesn't feel as good as it did when I just had the idea and everything was perfect. And then you hit that cycle 3 where you think, why did I get into this in the first place? I can't even imagine, like, where am I going? I've completely forgotten. And so that cycle 3, that's where you really need to hold on to that vision. And it can be challenging to hold on to that vision and to move towards it if you do have one of these 3 fears going on, and especially if you have all 3 of these fears going on, then it is going to derail you. So we're going to dive into the fear of commitment, the fear of failure, and the fear of not being good enough. They are the 3 culprits that tend to hold hands and have their own little pity party that stop you from achieving your goals when it comes to moving forward towards your vision and keeping the faith in your vision. Like, how do you keep faith that the vision is going to be successful? How do you stay faithful to your idea when there's lots of other things that want to distract you that you end up getting overwhelmed about, and then you don't end up moving towards your vision at all? So if you're feeling any of those things, then it's likely that there might be a little fear of commitment sneaking in there. There might be a fear of failure sneaking in there. Oh, well, if I go all in on this and I commit to this, which is where the fear of commitment comes in. If I commit to this and then it still fails, I'm not going to feel good enough, which then sparks off the fear of not feeling good enough or being good enough. And as a result of that, my identity will suffer. My confidence will suffer. How other people think of me and see me may suffer, which then kicks off a fear of judgment and maybe even a fear of abandonment. So there's a lot of fears that pack behind when you don't have faith in your business idea, or when you start to lose faith in it. It can be because some of these fears are lurking, and actually the fears is what's causing that stink rather than you not being good enough. It's nothing to do with that, because you already know that you are. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing unless you knew you were good enough to do it. However, when these other fears are starting to sneak in, that can be enough to bring you down. And then because it brings you down, then it just creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of, I'm not good enough, which is what you thought in the first place. So the fear of commitment often stems, when I talk about commitment, I'm talking about commitment towards your vision. It often stems from a reluctance to go all in, to fully invest into the vision. Now that might be due to uncertainty. So there might be a fear of uncertainty, which can also be connected to the fear of change. So you don't want to change because there's a fear of taking a perceived risk, which then comes down to the fear of taking risks. And because you're taking a risk, what if there's not a certain result at the end of that either makes you look good, feel good, or moves you towards the vision that you're setting for yourself? So that perceived risk, the fear of uncertainty, or the fear of taking risks, that can manifest as you making a hesitation to commit to long-term plans, decisions, goals, habits, behaviors, activities that you will need to do to commit to that. I have a lot of members who are going through our Invincible Impact Program, and I see it all the time. They go step by step by step. We show them step by step by step, and we're with them step by step by step, and they get to that last step. And then they realize, oh, hang on a minute, this is all complete now. Now I've got to commit to going all in. I've got to fill this program, or I'm launching this workshop and I need to get people on it. I have one graduate who, I remember when she first started the program with us, because it's a 12-month program. I remember when she first started, that she had this real fear of commitment. Like every time she turned up to one of the sessions, she was talking about a totally different idea. And I kind of pinned her one-to-one on a call and said, like, what's this about? Where does this come from? And it turned out when it stemmed back, I said, when's your earliest memory of when you feared making a commitment to something? And she went right back to when she was 3 years old, and her dad, she'd watched her father become this hugely successful therapist. And he'd started building his own practice. And at the point that it started to become successful, he said, we've got to move. And so she didn't think of anything of it at that time, but then it happened again, and then it happened again. And so at the age of 3, her behaviors and what her model of success was that when you start to become successful, or when you start to complete something, then it's time to move. And when we unpacked that, I said, wow, that 3-year-old is driving your business, it's driving your results, it's driving your behavior, it's driving the money that you have in your bank account or not at the end of each month. And she just didn't even realize that was lurking. And so the reason I tell you this story is that there can be many reasons for why these fears lurk around. And yes, sometimes they can go back to childhood, but other times it could be that you've already built a successful business. And I'm going to speak from complete experience here of a big fear that I had that drove me away from success for a long time. Was I'd built 5 companies. And one of those companies was a branding and marketing agency. We ended up, as we built these other companies, we ended up pulling them into the branding and marketing agency. So they were all part of one big company in the end. And I got so burned out in that business, unsurprisingly, because I really, at that time, I was just making it up. I was just on the wave of success. Success was just flowing to me and through me. It was just yes, yes, yes. We were saying yes, yes, yes all the way. The company grew. We had an amazing team. We had beautiful offices that we'd had converted. We had architects come in. They fit the entire thing. We, on the outside, we were a very successful business. From the inside, we were a very successful business. But on the inside of me, I was spiritually bankrupt because I was so exhausted working 18 to 20 hours a day that just to be able to manage everything, for me, that was what success looked like. For me to have the money, the house, the car, everything that I had, there was a massive cost to that success. Well, when I left that business, when I exited that business and had a break before then building the world's largest brand building resource, I had a fear of success that was so debilitating that my business, How to Build a Brand, which could have flown in 2 or 3 years, and it did fly, but it could have flown even more had I not had that fear of success, because the fear of success was driving me to, I'm going to say no to that, because if that becomes successful, then I won't have a life again, or I'll start having near-miss heart attacks again. And so my health was really driving me and all of my decisions, which is a good thing, but it was also driving me to say no to many opportunities that would have massively grown the business. And because I was so fearful of success, it stopped me from growing a team. I said, I never want staff again. I never want to grow again. I just want to be nice and comfortable and happy. And yet God was pulling me to go bigger, grow further, like reach more of my children, just go for it, And that fear was actually holding me back from God's work. And so I can totally relate if this fear is taking over and it is eating into your thoughts and it's creating behaviors and habits and results ultimately that you would like to change, that you'd like to be different, then we've got to really look into these fears. And if you haven't already done so, I would get the 1 Year No Fear book. You can get it from oneyearnofearbook.com. You can get it on Amazon, but if you go straight to Amazon, you'll miss out on all the resources and everything that Greg and I have created to go with that book. And you can get them through oneyearnofearbook.com. And in the book, on page 10, it lists out what the 12 fears are, the 12 biggest fears that actually lead to all of these other ones. And it gets you to go through a questionnaire for each of those 12 fears throughout the book. So the second half of the book is all about the actual fears themselves. If you already have the book, and even if you've done the questionnaires, I encourage you to go back and do them again. If you are feeling like you have some kind of fear or anxiety or frustration or overwhelm. Overwhelm is a classic symptom and sign of fear. And so when you get into that debilitated, paralyzing state, there will be one, if not more, of these fears that are packing the parachute of that fear. So I really encourage you to, even if you've done it before, go back and go through the questionnaires that are related to especially these three fears that we're talking about today: the fear of commitment, fear of failure, and fear of not being good enough. I would go through the questionnaires for those and just see if there's something lurking, because it doesn't have to go back to childhood. It could go back to an experience that you had in a business. We had a guy come to us to work on his brand, and actually it wasn't his brand that he needed help with at all. Over lockdown, I mean, this was a very accomplished guy who had spoken all over the world, had spoken in front of large audiences and for big companies for a long, long time. There was nothing about him that was fearful of getting in front of an audience until through lockdown, he had an experience where he had to deliver this presentation online, and he was on Zoom, I think, and he had to deliver this presentation. And as he was in the middle of delivering this presentation, something happened to his teleprompter. And because he was relying on the teleprompter and his presentation, something went wrong with the prompter and his presentation that he couldn't then deliver the presentation. Well, because he'd been relying so much on the slides, it totally took him down from being able to deliver the presentation. He couldn't remember the content. He went into a blind panic. Everybody on the call, he perceived, I mean, I don't know what the truth of it is, but he perceived that everybody laughed at him. He had to end the call. And from that point onwards, he had a fear of public speaking. So when you get behind that, no, you don't have a fear of public speaking. You have a fear of abandonment because they all abandoned you. You have a fear of rejection because they all laughed at you. You have a fear of failure in public. You've got a fear of being seen because of that failure. Fear of all kinds of things started to come up. Fear of judgment. There were all these fears that came up. There were actually 7 fears packing his fear of public speaking. So it wasn't as clear cut as I've got a fear of public speaking and need to learn how to speak publicly, because he already knew how to do that. It was these debilitating fears that had actually only started in the last couple of years for somebody who was already hugely accomplished in that area. So fear can sneak up on you when you're least expecting it. It doesn't have to come from a childhood trauma, as many people talk about it. It literally can come up from an experience that you've had recently even, or it might be something that someone said to you and then someone else said something similar, or that person said it twice and now you've started to soak that in. Well, just like a ship cannot sink because of the water around it, the ship can only sink from the water that gets into it. So when you have somebody saying something or an experience that happens to you more than once, your reticular activator is going to start looking out for that, and your ego is going to want to protect you and save you from all those things. So you could be the most talented person in the world, but if you've got an ego that is working to keep you safe, and fears, which are not a sign of failure, by the way, fears are a sign that you are actually really, really good at protecting yourself. We had one of our members that she said, "Oh my God, I've got all 12 of the fears and they're really high." I said, "Congratulations." And she was almost fit to burst into tears. She said, "But I feel really like a failure because I've got all these fears." I said, "No, you're actually the most successful person that I've met at having all of these fears." So you're really successful at protecting yourself. It's just like having a really successful big brother or big sister that is stopping you from doing stuff because they can see that it's not safe. And that's all it comes down to. So don't worry if you've got really high scores in any of the fears, because if you didn't have scores that were high in those fears and you had these situations that were happening that you're not progressing and you're not growing, then I'd be really concerned. But the fact that you do have these fears and that it is showing up to some level, it might be a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. If it's a 1, then you don't have that fear at all. If it's a 5, you've really got that fear protecting you. It's just protecting you. It's overprotection. So never see a fear as being something that is wrong with you. It just means that you're actually too perfect in protecting yourself in that area. So with that being said, let's dive into how you can be aligned with your vision and keep the faith in your vision, even when one of those fears is starting to try and undermine your confidence and self-belief. Because that's ultimately what we're talking about here, isn't it? Is if you're losing faith or you're losing sight of the vision, then your self-belief or your belief around that vision and achieving that vision, being successful around that vision and having the confidence to go for that vision, they're probably the things that are creating the stress, the anxiety, or the little buzz that's going on in the background that is just kind of humming there, eating into your confidence and causing you to be a smaller spirit in the universe than you have the power to be. And we don't want you to be in any of these fears, because usually what happens is as soon as you start to get into those fears, you start comparing yourself with others, you start going into imposter syndrome, you start becoming reluctant to be visible or to showcase the gorgeous gifts and talents and ideas that you've built up over the years, and you start to hide those away. So now that we've identified that some of these fears could be what's holding you back, let's dive in now and explore some of the practical strategies you can invest in time-wise in yourself to stay aligned with your vision despite all these things that are going on. Because I can't promise you that these things are never going to show up again. These fears might well show up, but what you can do is be aware of them and have a strategy for how to deal with it in spite of them. A bit like, is it Susan Jeffers that said, feel the fear and do it anyway? So the first thing is to just go back to your vision and values. That's where I would start. I'd start with your vision and values. Start by clearly defining what that vision is and what your values will need to be to drive you towards that vision. Now, you may well already have created your vision and you may think your vision is perfect and you've worked on it. Certainly, if you've been on the Invincible Impact Program, you will be working on your vision. It's the first thing that we do together. But is the vision still in alignment with where you're going? Because even just having this conversation, you might be thinking differently, which means you're a different person now than when you were before you started listening to this show. So the chances of your vision maybe needing to step up, or you stepping your identity up to meet that vision. So go back to your vision, go back to the values. What values would need to be important to you for you to see that vision come to life? And what would your identity need to be for somebody who is achieving a vision and achieving the results around that vision in that way? Once you have got really clear about what that vision is and what your values will need to be in complete alignment with the results of that vision, then number 2 is break it down into manageable steps that enable you to say, okay, well, if this is the vision in, say, 12 months, where would I need to be, knowing where I am now and knowing where I want to be in 12 months, where would I need to be in 3 months from now to make sure that I'm in alignment with that vision? And then where would I need to be in 6 months to be in alignment with achieving that vision? Where would I need to be in 9 months to be in alignment with achieving that vision? And what are the things I would be doing? What are the additional things I'll be doing in 6 months that I wouldn't be doing in month 3? what will I be doing in 9 months that moves me and accelerates me towards that vision that I'm not doing now? So you can start to break it down into quarters, and then I would break it down into months. Okay, so by the end of month 1, this is where I need to be. By the end of month 2, this is where I need to be, and carry on throughout the rest of the year. And you'll find that there's a massive amount of certainty and weight and foundation that helps you to stick to that vision and helps you to be in alignment with those values that create that vision. Something else that I think is important, the third thing, because we're gonna go through some points here. The third thing is to embrace flexibility and adaptability. Conditions will change. Your emotions will change. Situations will change. Life circumstances will change. Family, things that are going on in your family will change. Things that happen in the economy will change. One thing's for sure is that things are going to change, and they're going to change constantly. And if you are not flexible in a way that you can set your goal for the vision that you want to see in the world, but without being attached to that's exactly what it's got to look like, you might find that by not being attached to it too much, like be focused on the goal, but don't be so attached to it that you miss the magic that could come from a completely left field source where you are so focused on where you're going that you miss some of the opportunities that actually could accelerate where you're going if you were more flexible. Now, if you do have a fear of change, or if you have a fear of taking risks or perceived risks, then that's going to be a good challenge for you, because you will be far more rigid if you have those fears, and that rigidity is going to get in your way. So being flexible, being adaptable is really super important towards the vision, because you might have something or someone that approaches you that would just accelerate you so enormously in the direction that you want to go, but you might say no to the opportunity because fear comes up. So remember to be flexible and adaptable. And when you feel that fear sneaking up, I'm not good enough for this. Oh, why have they invited me to do this? Oh, and you start looking at other people around you and thinking, well, they're all better than me. As soon as you start having any of those thoughts, remember who you are. You're a child of God. You put that crown back on, right? You get back up again and you say, you know what? I was born for this. I was made for this moment. I have gone through what I've gone through to get to where I am now, so that I can be the perfect person, because I am the perfect person. And if that means that on step 4, you need to work on your mindset, then I would totally focus on building your resilience around a growth mindset. Make sure that you are actively looking for opportunities to grow, to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And the more you do that, and the more experience you get at going out of your comfort zone, the easier it's going to be at a point when you are called to go to a higher place or the next level, and you'll be ready for it, because even though it feels uncomfortable, you'll be ready to do it in spite of any fear you're feeling. The 5th point is to seek support and accountability. If you don't have any accountability around achieving your vision, I think many of you that are listening to the podcast are on the Invincible Impact Program, so you've got accountability, you've got support around you. But if you're listening to this or you're watching this and you don't have support packed around you, and you're not part of a network or some kind of group that meets regularly, then I would really encourage you to look for somewhere that you can do that. We run challenges at the end of every month via our Impact Catalyst Facebook page. If you go to facebook.com/The Impact Catalysts, that should take you to our Facebook page. And we run challenges to get the community doing stuff at the end of every month, to work on your business, to make more money doing what you love. And we really bust through fears. We bust through the things that are holding you back. And I share very vulnerably stuff that's happened in my business so that I pray it doesn't happen to you. And if it has happened to you and you're heading for it again, then let's avoid that happening. So we've got that happening at the end of every month. You can join in with the community there. We also have the Invincible Impact Program, which I highly recommend. We've got a brilliant community, lots of entrepreneurs and small business owners going through the Invincible Impact Program. And each step of that program is building confidence in you, is building certainty in your brand, in your business, putting all the things in place in your business that you're going to need so that you feel really confident when you're out there talking about it and selling your products and programs. And having people around you that really believe in your vision is one of the most powerful things that you can have going on, because there are times when you're going to feel like you're the only person in the world who cares about what you care about, and being part of something bigger than you means that when you have those fears that start, or when something sneaks up for you, the people around you are just going to, hold each other around you, create a circle around you, a circle of support, and just pour into you and remind you why you're doing this in the first place. Just a couple of other things that I think are important. One of them is to celebrate your progress and the small wins towards each step of your vision. You might get up in the morning and create a to-do list that needs to-do lists for your to-do list. And you'll know who you are. When you create that to-do list and then you just keep adding to the to-do list, and the to-do list can become overwhelming, and before you know it, you're actually doing a lot. It's what I call doing syndrome. You're doing a lot, but you're not actually moving forward in any way. Well, if you keep tuning into your vision every single morning and celebrate the small wins that you achieved the day before, that will massively propel you. One of the things we do on the Invincible Impact Program is we have an accountability area where every single day I put a post out in our community, which is on we're not on Facebook anymore. We've come away from Facebook, so we're using Circle now. And every single day I put a post in there and I say, right, tell me, what are your goals for this week? And then on the Tuesday, hey, how'd you get on towards those goals? Wednesday, how'd you get on? Thursday, how'd you get on? Friday, these are the goals you set. How did you get on towards them? And I give prizes away for those people. I do hot seats, and I give one-to-ones away to do prize draws at the end of every week to encourage more people to be accountable. Not just so that everyone can make you accountable, but so that more than anything, you are in the habit of and the behaviors of reporting back to someone. Because when you're in your own business, you've got no one above you who's saying, how are you getting on? How did you get on towards achieving that particular thing? You were working on this thing a few days ago. How did you get on? Are you moving closer towards it? Are you moving further away from it? And you've got that accountability, the level of accountability that a CEO of an organization should expect to have. And as a business owner, you are the CEO of your organization, because you're not running a hobby. The final thing that I want to close on is really just be kind to yourself. It's so easy to kick yourself. I mentioned it a little while ago. Oh, I must be absolutely rubbish because I've got all of these fears. It doesn't mean that at all. And your perception is what you are going to project. So if your perception is that you're not good enough, no matter what you create, you'll always hide. You'll never be visible. You'll never give life, breathe life into this product, which is effectively your brand baby. And you've had this brand baby, and then you put it to one side and say, yeah, I'm too embarrassed of myself to show you to the world, because I know that you could make a difference to people, but I'm going to just hang back here. I'm not going to tell anybody that you're there. That's what I see a lot. I was going to mention that earlier, is when, people create courses or programs, or they decide that they're going to run a workshop or they're going to deliver a webinar, and then they don't tell anybody about it the day before, knowing that then only a few people might be interested in it. And then at the end of it, they can say, oh, it wasn't successful because I didn't fill it. I didn't get loads of people on it. But then they didn't do everything they could have tried to get that product or program full. So it's really important that if any of these fears start to sneak up on you, just remember to be loving to yourself, be kind to yourself, and say, look, just because it didn't work very well last time doesn't mean that the past equals the future. This time it's going to be different because this time I've got a strong vision for it. This time I've got a plan. This time I know exactly where I need to be at each step of the journey so that I can adjust and adapt and be flexible accordingly. And if something comes along that is going to get in the way of the progress, then I can make a decision because I'm so connected to the vision. I can make a decision about, is this going to make the boat go faster, or is this going to distract me from achieving this vision that I've set out to achieve? And if it's going to move me towards it, then I'm going to say yes. If it's going to move me further away or just keep me stuck where I am, then that's going to be a no for me right now. So I hope that you found some useful tips within today's show, or that you got some great value from it. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Please share it with others. We really are on a mission to support small business owners, to make sure that you are achieving those visions that you're setting for yourself, that you stay aligned with your vision, that fear doesn't seep in or creep in like the water getting into the boat. It won't sink with the water around it, but it will sink if the water starts to get in it. And that's what's going to happen with your fear. So recognize your fear. Go back through the 1 Year No Fear questionnaires for each of the fears. See what might be lurking for you. And please do reach out and connect with me. I'll put my email address with the show notes here. Reach out and connect and tell me what's going on for you, because I don't have to name you to be able to create a show for you. This show is in fact created for somebody that reached out to me and said, hey, I love it if you could do me an episode on XYZ. That's why I'm doing this episode today. I don't have to name you, but what I can do is create content that helps you, that supports you. And in the meantime, it's available for everybody, and I'm sure that whatever you're going through, when I can help you through that, it's going to help a lot of others through that. So please share this show, like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care and stay blessed.